Captain Jake Morrison stood at the bridge window of the research ship New Horizon and watched the stars. They had been traveling through deep space for 6 months now, looking for new worlds and alien life. Jake was a good captain who cared about his crew, but today he felt worried. They were far from home, and Earth was just a tiny dot of light behind them. The ship was big and strong, with white metal walls and blue lights that made everything look clean and safe. 300 people lived and worked on the New Horizon. Most were scientists and explorers, but some were families too. Jake believed that long trips through space were easier when people had their loved ones nearby. Dr. Lisa Brooks walked onto the bridge carrying her tablet computer. She was the ship's expert on alien animals and plants. Lisa had short brown hair and kind eyes that always seemed to be thinking about something important. She looked excited but also nervous. "Captain, we found something on the long-range sensors," Lisa said. "There's a ship about 2 hours away from us. It's not moving, just floating in space." Jake turned away from the window. "Is it one of ours?" "No, sir. The computer says it's alien. The shape and materials are different from anything we've seen before." Lisa touched her tablet screen. "But Captain, there's something else. The ship is from the Kethvar Empire." Jake felt his stomach drop. Everyone in human space knew about the Kethvar. They were the most dangerous enemies humanity had ever faced. For 10 years they had been fighting a war across the galaxy. The Kethvar were strong and cruel, and they had weapons that could destroy entire cities. "Are there any life signs?" Jake asked. "The ship appears to be dead in space. No power, no movement, no radio signals. It might have been floating here for years." Lisa looked at her tablet again. "But Captain, this could be our chance to learn about their technology. We've never had a chance to study one of their ships up close." Jake thought about this. The war with the Kethvar had been going badly for humans. They needed to understand their enemy better. But it was also very dangerous. Kethvar ships often had traps and weapons that could kill anyone who tried to board them. "Call the senior staff to the meeting room," Jake said. "We need to talk about this." 20 minutes later, Jake sat at the head of a long table in the ship's main meeting room. Dr. Lisa Brooks was there, along with Security Chief Dan Carter and Chief Engineer Paul Adams. Dan was a big man with muscles and scars from fighting in the war. Paul was quieter, with gentle hands that could fix anything on the ship. "The alien ship is definitely Kethvar," Lisa said, showing pictures on the big screen. "It's a warship, but smaller than the ones we usually see in battle. Maybe it was a scout ship or a transport." Dan leaned forward in his chair. "Captain, I don't like this. Kethvar ships are always dangerous, even when they look dead. They could have weapons we don't know about." "I understand your concern, Dan," Jake said. "But think about what we could learn. We've been fighting them for 10 years, and we still don't understand how their technology works. This might be our only chance to get answers." Paul spoke up. "The ship could also have information about their homeworlds or their military plans. Data like that could help Earth win the war." Jake nodded. "Lisa, what do you think is on that ship?" "From the sensor readings, it looks like it was carrying cargo. There are large spaces in the back that might be storage areas. The Kethvar usually transport weapons or supplies in ships like this." Lisa paused. "There's also something else. The sensors show some kind of energy reading from the cargo area. It's very faint, but it's there." "What kind of energy?" Dan asked. "I don't know. It's not like anything we've seen before. It could be a power source or maybe some kind of technology we don't understand." Jake made his decision. "We're going to dock with the Kethvar ship and explore it. Dan, I want you to take a team of security guards. Lisa, you'll come with us to study whatever we find. Paul, you stay here and watch our ship." Dan shook his head. "Captain, this is a bad idea. What if it's a trap?" "Then we'll deal with it," Jake said. "But we can't pass up this chance. The war is not going well for us. We need every advantage we can get." As the meeting ended, Paul walked to the engineering section of the ship. This was where he worked with the big machines that made the New Horizon fly through space. It was also where he lived with his 8-year-old daughter Lucy. Lucy Adams was a small girl with bright blue eyes and blonde hair that always seemed messy. She loved to explore the ship and ask questions about everything she saw. Her mother had died when Lucy was very young, so Paul took care of her by himself. He was a good father who tried to keep Lucy safe while also letting her learn about the amazing things in space. "Daddy, what was the meeting about?" Lucy asked when Paul came home. She was sitting at their small table drawing pictures of the stars they had seen on their journey. "We found an alien ship, sweetheart," Paul said, sitting down next to her. "The captain wants us to go look at it." Lucy's eyes got wide with excitement. "Really? What kind of aliens?" Paul hesitated. He didn't want to scare Lucy, but he also didn't want to lie to her. "They're called the Kethvar. They're not very nice aliens, Lucy. They've been fighting with humans for a long time." "Are they scary?" "Some of them are, but this ship is empty. There are no aliens on it anymore. We just want to see what's inside." Lucy went back to her drawing, but Paul could tell she was thinking about the alien ship. She was a smart girl who understood more than most children her age. 2 hours later, Jake stood on the bridge and watched the alien ship get bigger as they moved closer to it. The Kethvar vessel was dark and angular with sharp edges that looked like they could cut through space itself. It was much smaller than the New Horizon, but it looked dangerous even when it was dead. "Bring us alongside their docking port," Jake told the pilot. "Nice and slow." The New Horizon moved carefully toward the alien ship. Jake could see that it had been damaged in some kind of battle. There were holes in the hull and burn marks on the metal. Whatever had happened to this ship, it had not been peaceful. "Captain, I'm reading the energy signal more clearly now," Lisa said from her station. "It's definitely coming from the cargo area. The reading is stronger than before." "Stronger how?" Jake asked. "Like whatever is making the energy is waking up." Dan looked up from his security station. "Captain, I really think we should be more careful about this." "We will be," Jake promised, "but we're going aboard. Get your team ready." As the two ships connected with a loud metal sound, Jake felt excited and scared at the same time. They were about to explore an enemy ship that might hold the secrets to winning the war, but they were also about to face whatever was making that strange energy reading in the cargo hold. Jake had no idea that in a few hours, everything would change. He didn't know that the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy was sleeping in that cargo hold waiting to wake up. And he certainly didn't know that the solution to their problem would come from the most unlikely person on his ship, a small 8-year-old girl who loved to draw pictures of stars. Jake Morrison put on his spacesuit and checked his weapon. The suit was thick and white, with a clear helmet that let him see everything around him. His laser gun felt heavy on his belt, but it made him feel safer. Beside him, Dr. Lisa Brooks was also getting ready. She carried a tablet computer and several scanning devices. Security Chief Dan Carter had 6 guards with him. They all wore black armor and carried bigger weapons than Jake. Dan looked worried as he checked his equipment one more time. "Remember, we don't know what's on that ship," Dan told his team. "Stay close together and watch for traps." The airlock door opened with a hiss of air. Jake stepped into the dark alien ship first. His helmet light cut through the darkness, showing walls made of strange purple metal. The corridors were wider than human ships, and the air smelled different through his suit's filters. "The gravity is working," Lisa said, looking at her tablet. "That's strange for a dead ship." They walked slowly through the corridors. Jake's boots made soft sounds on the metal floor. The walls had writing and alien symbols that glowed faintly in the dark. Some of the lights still worked, casting weird shadows that made everything look scary. "The cargo hold should be this way," Lisa said, checking her map. They passed several empty rooms. Jake could see that this had been a military ship. There were weapon racks on the walls and computer stations that looked like they controlled guns and missiles. Everything was built for war. The corridor ended at a massive door. It was twice as tall as a human and made of thick metal with more alien writing carved into it. Dan's scanner showed that something was behind the door. Something big. "The energy reading is very strong now," Lisa whispered. "Whatever is in there, it's definitely alive." Jake felt his heart beating faster. "Open it." Dan typed commands into the door's control panel. The alien symbols flashed, and with a deep rumbling sound, the door began to slide open. Cold air rushed out, making fog swirl around their feet. Jake stepped into the cargo hold and stopped. The room was huge, bigger than his house back on Earth. In the center stood a machine that looked like a glass cage, but the glass was dark and covered with frost. Tubes and wires connected it to the ship's power system. "It's some kind of prison," Dan said, raising his weapon. Lisa walked closer to the machine, her scanner beeping faster and faster. "Jake, look at this. There's something inside the cage, something big." Jake moved his light to shine on the dark glass. At first he saw nothing. Then something moved inside, and he jumped back. Through the frost he could see a shape that was definitely alive. It was huge and had too many arms. "What is it?" one of the guards asked. Lisa's face went pale as she read her scanner. I think it's a razor claw." Everyone went quiet. Razor claws were the most feared weapons in the galaxy. The Kethvar used them to destroy human cities and ships. They were monsters that could not be stopped by normal weapons. Jake had seen videos of what they could do, and it gave him nightmares. "Are you sure?" Jake asked. "The size is right. The energy readings match what we know about them, and look at those spines." Lisa pointed at sharp crystal shapes inside the cage. "This is definitely a razor claw." Dan grabbed Jake's arm. "Captain, we need to leave right now. These things are too dangerous." Jake stared at the machine. Part of him wanted to run away as fast as possible. But another part of him thought about the war. Humans had been losing battles because they didn't understand these creatures. If they could study one, maybe they could find a way to fight them. "We're taking it with us," Jake said. "What?" Dan shouted. "Captain, that's crazy. These things can tear apart a starship." "It's sleeping. Look at all the machines keeping it frozen. We can move the whole system to our ship and study it safely." Lisa nodded slowly. Jake might be right. This could be our chance to understand how they work. Maybe we can find a weakness. Dan shook his head, but he knew better than to argue with his captain. "If we do this, I want every safety measure we can think of. Extra guards, stronger cages, everything." "Agreed," Jake said. "Let's get this thing moved." It took 3 hours to move the prison machine to the New Horizon. Jake's crew worked carefully, making sure all the power connections stayed working. The razor claw never moved during the transfer. It stayed frozen inside its glass cage like a terrible statue. They put the machine in the ship's strongest storage room. Dan placed armed guards at the door and set up sensors to watch for any changes. Lisa connected her computers to study the creature while it slept. Lucy Adams was watching from the observation deck when they brought the alien machine aboard. She pressed her face against the window, trying to see what was inside the dark cage. Her father Paul was busy in the engine room making sure the ship had enough power for the alien machine. "What's in there?" Lucy asked one of the crew members. "Nothing you need to worry about, sweetheart," the woman said. "Just some alien equipment your dad is helping with." But Lucy was curious. She had spent years exploring every part of the New Horizon. She knew all the secret passages and maintenance tunnels that connected different parts of the ship. That night, when everyone thought she was asleep, she snuck out of her room. Lucy crawled through the air vents above the storage room. She had done this before when she wanted to see what the adults were doing. Through the metal grating, she could see the alien machine and the guards standing nearby. The machine was making soft humming sounds. The lights on its control panel blinked in patterns that looked almost like they were trying to say something. Lucy watched for a long time, but nothing exciting happened. Finally, she crawled back to her room and went to sleep. The next morning, Jake was drinking coffee on the bridge when alarms started going off. Red lights flashed everywhere, and the ship's computer began talking in its calm female voice. "Warning. Power fluctuation in Storage Bay 7. Warning." Jake ran to the storage bay with Lisa and Dan right behind him. When they got there, they saw that something was wrong with the alien machine. The lights were flashing faster and the humming sound was getting louder. "What's happening?" Jake asked. Lisa checked her tablet quickly. The power surge from connecting it to our systems must have woken it up. The creature is coming out of its frozen sleep. Through the dark glass of the cage, they could see movement. Something was shifting inside, getting bigger and bigger. Then they heard a sound that made everyone's blood turn cold. It was like metal being torn apart, mixed with the roar of an angry wild animal. "The cage is breaking," Dan shouted. Cracks appeared in the glass. The metal frame began to bend and twist. Whatever was inside the cage was incredibly strong, and it was very angry about being trapped. "Everyone out," Jake ordered. "Seal the doors." They ran from the storage room as fast as they could. Dan slammed his hand on the emergency lock button. Heavy metal doors crashed down, sealing the room. But, even through the thick metal, they could hear the sounds of destruction inside. "Will the doors hold?" Jake asked. "For a while," Dan said. "But Captain, if that thing gets out—" He didn't need to finish. They all knew what Razor Claws could do. Jake had made a terrible mistake bringing it aboard his ship. Now 300 people were in danger because of his decision. The lights went out in the corridor. Emergency power kicked in a second later, but now everything was dim and red. Somewhere behind the metal doors, something was breaking free, and Jake knew their nightmare was just beginning. The sound of breaking metal echoed through the new horizon. Jake Morrison stood in the hallway outside the storage room, watching the heavy doors shake with each impact from inside. The creature was getting stronger as it woke up completely. "How long before it breaks through?" Jake asked Dan Carter. Dan looked at his scanner and shook his head. "Those doors are the strongest on the ship, but this thing is tearing them apart like paper. Maybe 10 minutes, maybe less." Dr. Lisa Brooks was studying her tablet computer with worried eyes. "Jake, I'm reading the creature's brain activity now that it's awake. This thing is smart, really smart. It's not just hitting the doors randomly. It's testing them, looking for weak spots." A loud crash came from behind the doors. One of the metal panels had a dent in it now. The Razor Claw was learning how to escape. "All crew members, this is Captain Morrison," Jake said into his radio. "We have a dangerous situation. Everyone needs to move to the front section of the ship immediately. This is not a drill." Throughout the new horizon, people stopped what they were doing and began walking quickly toward the safer parts of the ship. Families gathered their children, scientists grabbed their important research, and everyone tried to stay calm even though they were scared. In the engineering section, Paul Adams was working hard to keep the ship's power running smoothly. The alien machine had used a lot of energy, and now all the emergency systems were working at the same time. Lucy was supposed to stay in their quarters, but she was worried about her father. "Daddy, what's that noise?" Lucy asked as she came into the engine room. Paul looked up from his work. His face was sweaty and tired. "Lucy, you should be with the other families in the safe area." "But I want to help you," Lucy said. "I know how to read the power meters." Paul smiled even though he was scared. Lucy was smart for her age, and she had learned a lot about the ship by watching him work. "Okay, but if I tell you to run, you run as fast as you can, promise me." "I promise, Daddy." Another crash echoed through the ship, this one much louder. The lights flickered, and Paul's computers showed red warning signs. "The creature broke through the storage room," Paul said. "It's in the main corridors now." Jake's voice came over the radio again. "Security teams to Deck 7, the creature is loose. I repeat, the creature is loose." Paul heard laser guns firing in the distance. There were shouts and screams, then more gunfire. The sounds were getting closer to the engineering section. "Lucy, we need to go now," Paul said, reaching for his daughter's hand. But the main door to engineering had already closed automatically when the emergency started. Paul tried to open it, but the computer said the hallway outside was too dangerous. They were trapped. "The maintenance tunnels," Lucy said. "We can use those to get to the safe area." Paul nodded. Lucy knew the ship better than almost anyone because she loved to explore. The maintenance tunnels were small spaces between the walls where workers could fix pipes and wires. They connected all parts of the ship. Paul opened a panel in the wall. "You go first, I'll be right behind you." Lucy crawled into the narrow tunnel. It was dark and cramped, but she had been through it many times before. Paul followed her, trying not to think about what might happen if the creature found them. They crawled through the tunnels for several minutes. Paul could hear the battle happening in the corridors around them. The laser guns were not working very well against the creature. Each time the security guards tried to fight it, they had to run away. "This way leads to the observation deck," Lucy whispered. "We can get to the safe area from there," But when they reached the next junction, the tunnel was blocked. Something had damaged the ship's structure and metal beams had fallen across their path. "We have to go the other way," Paul said. They turned around and crawled toward a different part of the ship. Paul was getting tired, and he was very worried about Lucy. This was not a place for a little girl to be during such a dangerous time. The tunnel ended at another wall panel. Paul opened it carefully and looked out. They were in a corridor he didn't recognize. It was darker than the rest of the ship, and he could smell something strange in the air. "Where are we?" Lucy asked. "I think we're near the old cargo bays," Paul said. "The ones we don't use anymore." They climbed out of the tunnel and stood in the corridor. Paul's flashlight showed empty rooms and old equipment. This part of the ship was quiet, away from the battle happening in the main sections. "Daddy, I think we're lost," Lucy said. Paul was about to answer when the lights went out completely. His flashlight was the only light in the darkness. Then they heard a sound that made Paul's heart stop. It was the same metal tearing, animal roaring sound they had heard from the storage room, but now it was very close. "Lucy, get behind me," Paul whispered. The sound came again, closer this time. Paul could hear heavy footsteps on the metal floor. Something big was walking toward them in the darkness. Paul tried to use his radio to call for help, but it was not working in this part of the ship. They were alone with whatever was coming toward them. "Run," Paul told Lucy. "Run back to the tunnel." But before Lucy could move, the creature appeared in Paul's flashlight beam. It was the most terrifying thing he had ever seen. The razor claw stood 12 feet tall with crystal spines covering its body. It had 4 arms that ended in claws that looked like they could cut through anything. Its eyes glowed with a cold blue light. Paul pushed Lucy behind him and raised his flashlight like a weapon, even though he knew it would not help. The creature looked at them with those glowing eyes, and Paul was sure they were going to die. But something strange happened. The razor claw stopped moving. It tilted its head to one side like it was confused. Then it made a different sound, not the angry roar from before, but something softer. Lucy stepped out from behind her father. "Lucy." "No," Paul whispered. But Lucy was not running away. She was looking at the creature with the same expression she used when she found hurt animals back on Earth. Her grandmother had been a veterinarian, and Lucy had learned how to be gentle with scared animals. "You're hurt," Lucy said to the creature. "I can see it in your eyes." The razor claw made that soft sound again. Its crystal spines, which had been glowing bright red with anger, began to change color. Now they were glowing soft blue, like its eyes. Paul could not believe what he was seeing. The most dangerous creature in the galaxy was standing still and listening to his 8-year-old daughter. "Everyone is scared of you," Lucy continued, taking a small step closer. "But I think you're scared too." The creature lowered its head so it was closer to Lucy's level. Paul wanted to grab his daughter and run, but something told him to wait. This was not the monster from the videos. This was something different. Lucy reached out her small hand toward the creature. "I'm Lucy. What's your name?" The razor claw extended one of its massive claws. Paul held his breath as the sharp crystal came within inches of Lucy's face. But the creature was very careful not to hurt her. It touched her hand so gently that it barely made contact. For the first time since the nightmare began, Paul heard something that gave him hope. The creature was making a sound like purring, the same sound cats made when they were happy. This monster, this weapon of war, was being gentle with a little girl who was not afraid of it. Dr. Lisa Brooks stared at her computer screen in shock. She was watching the security cameras that showed Lucy Adams standing next to the razor claw. The creature that had been destroying their ship was now sitting quietly, making soft purring sounds. "Captain, you need to see this." Lisa called to Jake Morrison. Jake rushed over to Lisa's station on the bridge. When he saw the video feed, his mouth dropped open. "Is that really happening?" "The creature's brain patterns have completely changed," Lisa said, pointing to the readings on her screen. "When it was fighting our security teams, its brain showed anger and aggression. Now it's showing curiosity and something that looks like happiness." Security Chief Dan Carter was also watching the cameras. We need to get the girl away from that thing before it changes its mind and attacks her. No, Lisa said quickly. Look at these readings. The creature isn't pretending to be calm. It really is calm. Something about the child has affected it in a way we don't understand. On the screen, they could see Lucy talking to the Razor Claw like it was a big dog. Her father, Paul, stood nearby, ready to protect his daughter but amazed by what he was seeing. What is she saying to it? Jake asked. Lisa adjusted the audio controls. Suddenly, they could hear Lucy's voice through the ship's communication system. I know you're not really bad, Lucy was saying to the creature. Bad animals try to hurt people for fun, but you're just scared and confused. The Razor Claw made a low rumbling sound that was almost like talking. Its crystal spines changed from blue to soft green, and it moved its head closer to Lucy. It's trying to communicate with her, Lisa whispered. Jake, this is incredible. We always thought these creatures were just mindless weapons, but this one is showing intelligence. Jake grabbed his radio. Paul, can you hear me? Are you and Lucy safe? Paul's voice came back through the static. I think so, Captain. This creature is not trying to hurt us. Lucy seems to understand it somehow. Can you bring Lucy and the creature to the main cargo bay? We need to study this. I'll try, but I think the creature will only follow Lucy. Lisa worked quickly at her computer, running scans on the Razor Claw from a distance. Jake, I'm finding things about this creature that don't match what we knew about Razor Claws. What kind of things? Its brain is much more complex than our records showed. And there are signs of old injuries, like someone operated on its head many times. Lisa's face grew serious. I think the Kethvar have been changing these creatures, making them into weapons when they might have been peaceful originally. On the security cameras, they watched Lucy start walking toward the cargo bay. The Razor Claw followed her like a giant pet, careful not to step too close and accidentally hurt her with its size. Lucy, tell your new friend to be very gentle, Paul said, walking beside them. There are other people on this ship who are scared. I will, Daddy, Lucy said. Then she looked up at the creature. Crystal, you need to be extra careful around other people. They don't understand you like I do. Crystal? Jake asked through the radio. That's what I'm calling him, Lucy said, because of his pretty crystal spines. 20 minutes later, Lucy led Crystal into the main cargo bay. Jake, Lisa, and Dan were waiting there with several other crew members. Everyone stayed far back from the creature except Lucy, who walked right beside it. Crystal looked around the large room with its glowing blue eyes. When it saw all the humans watching it, its spines began to turn yellow, which seemed to mean it was nervous. It's okay, Lucy said, patting one of Crystal's lower arms. These are my friends. They want to understand you too. Lisa stepped forward slowly, holding her scanner. Lucy, can you ask Crystal if it's okay for me to take some readings? Lucy looked up at the tall creature. Crystal, the nice lady wants to learn about you. She won't hurt you. Crystal made a soft chirping sound and nodded its head. Lisa was amazed that it understood. The readings are incredible, Lisa said as she worked. This creature has been fighting some kind of control system in its brain. There are artificial implants that were forcing it to be aggressive. You mean someone put machines in its head? Lucy asked. Yes, sweetheart. Bad people put things in Crystal's brain to make it angry all the time, but talking to you seems to have helped it fight against those machines. Crystal made a longer sound, like it was trying to say something important. Lucy listened carefully. I think it's trying to tell us about its home, Lucy said, before the bad people took it away. Lisa set up a translation computer that could analyze the creature's sounds. It took several tries, but slowly they began to understand what Crystal was saying. The story that came out was terrible and sad. Crystal and its people had lived on a peaceful planet far away. They were smart creatures who built beautiful cities and loved art and music. But the Kethvar Empire came to their world and captured many of them. The Kethvar scientists put machines in their brains to make them forget their families and homes. They turned these gentle creatures into weapons for war. Crystal had been fighting against the control machines for many years, trying to remember who it really was. That's why it was destroying the ship's systems, Lisa realized. It wasn't trying to hurt us. It was trying to disable our weapons so we couldn't call for military ships that might take it back to the Kethvar. Jake felt sick thinking about what had been done to Crystal and its people. How many of these creatures are out there, forced to fight against their will? Hundreds, maybe thousands, Lisa said. The Kethvar have been using them as weapons for decades. Lucy was still standing next to Crystal, holding one of its large claws in her small hands. Crystal, would you like to stay with us? We can help you remember more about your real home. Crystal's spines turned bright gold, which seemed to mean it was very happy. It made excited chirping sounds and gently touched Lucy's hair with the tip of one claw. I think that means yes, Lucy said with a big smile. But Dan looked worried. Captain, what if the Kethvar come looking for this creature? They're not going to be happy that we freed one of their weapons. Then we'll deal with that when it happens, Jake said. Right now we need to learn everything we can from Crystal. This could change the whole war. Over the next few hours, Crystal showed them amazing things. It could fix the ship's damaged systems by using its claws like precision tools. It understood technology in ways that human engineers had never imagined. And most importantly, it remembered things about other creatures like itself that were still trapped by the Kethvar. There are others like me on many ships, Crystal told them through the translation computer. They are all waiting for someone to help them remember who they really are. Lucy spent most of her time with Crystal, teaching it human words and learning about its original culture. She found out that Crystal's real name was something like a musical song that human voices could not make. So Crystal liked being called by the name Lucy had given it. Lucy has a gift, Lisa told Jake as they watched the girl and creature play a simple game together. Most adults would be too scared or too focused on the creature's appearance to see the real person inside. But children see things differently. Jake nodded. Maybe that's what we need to win this war. Not bigger weapons or stronger ships. Maybe we just need to understand our enemies better. As night came on the ship, Crystal helped Paul fix the damage it had caused during its escape. The creature was very sorry about hurting the ship and wanted to make everything better. Lucy stayed nearby, translating when Crystal had trouble with human words. Tomorrow we start planning how to help the other creatures like Crystal, Jake announced to his crew. This war is about to change in ways the Kethvar never expected. 3 days later, alarms started ringing all over the New Horizon. Captain Jake Morrison ran to the bridge where his crew was looking at the main screen with worried faces. 3 large Kethvar warships were coming toward them, moving fast through space. How did they find us? Jake asked. The derelict ship must have sent out a signal when we took Crystal, Dr. Lisa Brooks said. They're here to get their weapon back. Security Chief Dan Carter checked his weapon systems. Captain, we can't fight 3 warships. They're too big and too strong for us. On the screen, Jake could see the enemy ships getting bigger as they came closer. Each one was twice the size of the New Horizon and covered with weapons. The Kethvar had come in force to reclaim their lost creature. Jake's radio crackled to life. An angry alien voice spoke in broken human language. Human ship, you have stolen property of Kethvar Empire. Return our weapon or we will destroy you. Jake picked up the radio. This is Captain Morrison of the research vessel New Horizon. We found your ship dead in space. We thought it was abandoned. You lie, human. Our bioweapon is aboard your ship. We can sense it. Return, creature, now, or face destruction. Jake looked around at his crew. They all knew they were in terrible danger. The Kethvar did not make empty threats. If they didn't give Crystal back, everyone on the ship would die. In the cargo bay, Lucy Adams was playing with Crystal when the alarm started. The big creature's spines turned dark red and it began making frightened sounds. What's wrong, Crystal? Lucy asked. Crystal pointed toward the ceiling and made urgent chirping noises. Through the translation computer, its words came out as bad people here. Come to take me back. Paul Adams arrived at the cargo bay looking scared. Lucy, we need to get you to the safe area. The Kethvar are here. But Lucy didn't want to leave. Crystal alone. Daddy, they're going to hurt my friend. Sweetheart, there's nothing we can do. We have to give Crystal back or they'll destroy the ship. Crystal's spines were now flashing red and yellow rapidly. The creature was becoming more agitated by the minute. It began pacing around the cargo bay, making distressed sounds. "The control machines in its brain are activating," Lisa said as she arrived with her scanner. "The Kethvar ships are sending signals that trigger the implants. Crystal is fighting against them, but it's getting harder." Jake's voice came over the ship's communication system. "All crew members prepare for possible evacuation. We are in negotiations with hostile forces." But the negotiations were not going well. The Kethvar commander refused to listen to anything Jake said. They wanted their weapon back immediately, and they didn't care about human explanations. "You have 1 hour to transfer the creature to our ship," the alien voice said. "After that, we will take it by force." In the cargo bay, Crystal was getting worse. Its eyes were glowing brighter, and it had started damaging equipment again. The control machines were winning the battle inside its brain. "We're losing it," Lisa said sadly. "The artificial programming is too strong when the Kethvar are this close." Lucy watched her friend struggle against the machines in its head. Crystal kept looking at her with desperate eyes, as if asking for help. But there was nothing an 8-year-old girl could do against alien technology. "Maybe we should let it go," Paul said quietly. "If Crystal stays here, the Kethvar will kill everyone on the ship." "No," Lucy said firmly. "Crystal doesn't want to go back to being a weapon. We have to help it." Dr. Lisa Brooks tried everything she could think of. She used different sounds and light patterns to calm Crystal down. She tried blocking the Kethvar signals with electronic shields. Nothing worked. The creature was getting more violent every minute. "Lucy, you need to stay away from Crystal now," Dan Carter said as he arrived with his security team. "It's becoming dangerous again." But Lucy refused to leave. "Crystal is my friend. Friends don't abandon each other." The Kethvar ships were now very close to the new horizon. Jake could see their weapons charging up, ready to fire. In 30 minutes, they would start shooting if Crystal wasn't returned to them. In the cargo bay, Crystal was completely out of control. It was roaring and smashing equipment with its claws. Its spines were bright red and its eyes showed only anger. The gentle creature that had played with Lucy was gone, replaced by the weapon the Kethvar had created. "Everyone out," Dan ordered. "The creature is too dangerous now." Paul grabbed Lucy's hand to pull her away, but she broke free and ran toward Crystal. The creature was in the middle of destroying a computer console, its claws tearing through metal like paper. "Lucy, no!" Paul shouted. But Lucy wasn't scared. She walked right up to the raging creature and did something that surprised everyone. She used the same voice she had used with her pet dog back on Earth, firm but kind. "Crystal, sit." The simple command cut through all the noise and confusion. Crystal stopped destroying the computer and looked down at Lucy. For a moment, the artificial programming in its brain was confused by the unexpected order. "Sit," Lucy repeated, pointing at the floor. Crystal slowly lowered itself to a sitting position, its massive form folding up like a giant cat. The red glow in its spines began to fade, replaced by the gentle blue color that meant it was calm. Everyone in the cargo bay stared in amazement. The most advanced alien technology in the galaxy had been defeated by a simple command from a child. "Good boy," Lucy said, patting Crystal's lower arm. "Now I need you to protect us from the bad people who want to hurt you." Crystal's eyes cleared, completely. The artificial programming was still there, but Lucy's simple words had given the creature something stronger to focus on. Instead of being forced to attack, Crystal chose to defend. "Protect my family," Lucy said, hugging one of Crystal's arms. "Can you do that?" Crystal stood up slowly and made a deep, rumbling sound that everyone felt in their bones. Its spines turned, bright gold, and it moved toward the ship's computer systems. But instead of destroying them, Crystal began connecting itself to the ship's controls. "What is it doing?" Jake asked over the radio. Lisa checked her scanners and couldn't believe what she was seeing. "Crystal is taking control of our weapons and defense systems. It's using its knowledge of Kethvar technology to improve our ship." On the bridge, Jake watched his computer screens light up with new information. The ship's weapons were now more powerful than ever before. The shields were stronger, and the engines were running more efficiently. Crystal was turning the new Horizon into a match for the Kethvar warships. "Human ship, your time is up," the alien commander said. "Prepare to be boarded." But Jake was no longer worried. "I'm sorry, but our friend doesn't want to go with you, and we've decided to respect its choice." The first Kethvar ship fired its weapons at the New Horizon, but Crystal had predicted exactly where they would shoot. The ship moved out of the way so smoothly that it looked like dancing. Crystal began firing back, but not to destroy the enemy ships. Instead, it targeted their weapon systems and engines with surgical precision. Within minutes, all 3 Kethvar warships were floating helplessly in space. "Impossible," the alien commander said. "How did you defeat our fleet?" Jake smiled as he looked at the security camera showing Lucy hugging Crystal in the cargo bay. "We had help from a friend who remembers what it means to choose kindness over violence." The battle was over, but Crystal's work was just beginning. It sent signals to other creatures like itself on different Kethvar ships, teaching them how to break free from their programming. Across the galaxy, enslaved beings began to remember who they really were. Lucy Adams, an 8-year-old girl who saw friendship where others saw only weapons, had started a revolution that would change the war forever. And it all began with the simplest command a human can give: sit.